Hello, welcome to the panel on research collaboration and external grant. So before we start, we're going to introduce our panelists. I actually don't have the bio. I'm just going to tell you their name and where they're from. So my name is Bei. I'm in the CS department. And next to me is Susanna Campbell from School of International Service, Jeff Lee from Koga School of Business, Michael Julie Mary Baldwin is the VP of Research, and Leah Ding is a faculty from CS, and at the end is Michael Alonso, faculty from Environmental Science. Thank you very much. I think we'll just dive into the questions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a question, and you can volunteer to answer. And then once we go, we have 5 questions, and then do you think the audience should also ask after each?
We want to leave 15 minutes for Q&A.
Okay, for the general questions. But you can also ask the similar questions at the end. Okay, so the first question, I made it up. I'm curious because also the dean said, although he left, he's interested, is research has many steps, including brainstorming ideas, designing research protocols, collecting data, building theoretical models, analyzing the data, writing up the results, presenting your results to general audience. In what of these steps do you find yourself using AI, especially generative AI? Or you find its most productive use?
I guess I liked question 1, so I can start with that one a little bit. I've been using it quite a bit in these processes, I guess. Like we just submitted a NSF proposal last year, and one of the value adds was having ChatGPT do a critical review of the proposal and say like what it was missing, what dots were not connecting, particularly because this was a collaboration between environmental science, where I'm at, so a little more quantitative, and an anthropologist in SIS, and so we speak different languages, we have different literature, and so having a deep research from ChatGPT come in and at least give us some ideas of how to, what frameworks can overlap between us that offer some connective tissue for the proposal. So that's one main thing, and then the other one I'll mention is just coding anything. So pilot projects right now. We just received some internal funding from the Center for Environment, Community, and Equity, and this is another SIS and CAS proposal or project that's going to be, my part of it is, can you detect solar panels from high-resolution satellite imagery? And I'm a remote sensing satellite guy, but this was my first foray into deep learning and computer vision, and not something I'd done before, so I collaborated with my friend ChatGPT, and we just built out some code for a pilot project to detect solar panels. ChatGPT helped me find a training and validation data of solar panels in Germany. So we got it up and running within 3 hours, and now we're gonna work to see if we can apply that to our actual study areas in Jordan and Lebanon.
Myself and my students also use ChatGPT or Cloud or Google Gemini a lot in our coding work. So in the past, it's impossible to write thousands of lines of code within minutes. Now we can do it. And also with all the available, for example, foundation models for coding, we can easily create different sub-coding agents to work for us, to do things we want to do. So basically, they do the coding, the experiment, the testing, the training, like 24/7. Never need a rest. So we have been using that speed up the research process, the research progress we are working on, and also I'm using AI to, for example, communicate the results to people who are outside my field. For example, when I started working with NASA scientists, we speak very different language, and basically AI helps me to translate my language to theirs so they can understand better about my stuff, and it also helps me to understand better about their challenges, their needs, so we can collaborate better on the projects.
Okay, so mine's super basic. I'm a social scientist by trade, so, and you saw my tech savviness from this morning. So I just started using it, actually. Thank you to Dean Marchek, got me an account for Perplexity, and I've just been playing with it since December, so I'm super new to this area. Really, I did have it try to help me develop 3 grant proposals over the break. It wasn't so successful with that. I ended up doing the most of the work, but I really tried to use it in basic ways, trying to draft out timelines, which I thought was a great starting point. It didn't have everything that I needed, but just treating everything as a draft. One thing I do use it for is synthesizing communication. So if we have a lot of interdisciplinary and large group meetings for a lot of our projects, and they're oftentimes between researchers and practitioners. And so basically synthesizing those notes and then putting it in a basic language that everybody can understand. And then, yeah, I'm just making sure I don't use it replacing expert judgment. So anything like just starting points, and I'm just still trying to learn how to integrate it into my grant writing.
I also want to say, if you want to add a few caution warnings of things you think AI shouldn't be involved, you should also comment. I left that part out.
Yeah, I'm on the slower end of adopting, I guess. I'm using it mainly for copy editing, I would say. So in my work, I have to run surveys, and I write questions for the surveys, and sometimes my writing is not good, and we'll throw the survey into one of these language models to see if we can make it better. But the other aspect is just writing my papers, working with it to, I want to bang out an idea, like a paragraph, and I will ask like a Perplexity to help me to edit it, and then we'll iterate through that process. I don't know if it's saving me time, but it's making it a far more enjoyable experience. So I like it so far. So those are the main ways, and I use it for polishing, I would say.
So I run 2 things here. I run something called the Translating Research into Action Center, which we'll talk about a little bit more, and I run a lab called RIPPLE, Research on International Policy Implementation Lab. And in the lab, we do a different type of coding often. We build data sets. So we code a lot of qualitative material into quantitative material. And so we've built this large data set of over 14,000 aid actors, and the scope and scale of these data got way beyond what we could do with RAs. And so what we've done is develop a kind of human-in-the-loop pipeline. And I think what's really important here is that some people are just kind of throwing, raw data and saying, code this, find these things for me. And what we found is that if you don't have a human in the loop, then you're not actually going to produce valid measures, that you're letting the AI model do a lot of really important conceptual and measurement work for you that you should be doing yourself. So this is a really interesting way of using the strengths of human coders and AI to actually validate what the human coders have done and help us to find mistakes, but also really help us to use the things that we wrote for human coders, like our code books, and feed those into AI. So I think if you integrate it well, it's smart. If you use it for things that it's not built for, you're not actually doing good social science.
Well, thank you so very much. The next question is about language across different disciplines and form productive collaboration. So each field has its own assumptions, methods, and standard. So what are some of the common misunderstandings you encounter when collaborating? I can mention one. I'm a basic scientist, means my research do not generate typically, even though I also do applied work, to a product. So that makes it sometimes frustrating for people who are immediately want a product. But it's very important to do basic science. I hope you also appreciate that, because long term, the impact is longer term. So I want to bring to the panelists, what's the common misunderstanding you typically encounter during a cross-discipline? This is a cross-discipline collaborations. We can from reverse or whoever.
I don't need to answer. I'm going to focus on answering an
yeah.
question.
So then whoever. Yeah.
I mean, I can try. I think that what's challenging often is like the difference in standards for me. So I do language analysis, so it's like at the intersection of like psych and data science, right? And so like there are different standards. So like a psychologist might, like if you're trying to evaluate the the output of a language model, a psychologist might have one set of expectations and a data scientist might have another. So if you're trying to write for like a psych journal, then you're like starting to wonder, well, do I want to report the F1 statistics, or do I want to start like reporting correlations with constructs that theoretically should be connected, right, to what I'm measuring? And so like kind of having those conversations around what the target journals are allows you to figure out what standards you need to, like kind of what audience you're going after. But what ends up happening in my work is that everybody wants to impose their own like whatever their like key metrics are. So we end up with like a giant web appendix. I don't know if that's the right way of dealing with it, but that's what I end up with.
Thank you.
I have an, okay, so there's three things that I really see. Again, I work across disciplines with larger teams. And so often I see different definitions in rigor and evidence. So say what a computer scientist sees as a solid evaluation, a social scientist might not, or vice versa. Different success metrics and timelines. So this is where one person is optimizing, say, for a conference deadline, another has a 5-year, is envisioning a 5-year long longitudinal study, and another really wants policy change in the next cycle. Third is different vocabularies with hidden assumptions. So words like validity, fairness, risk, or even experiment can carry different meanings across disciplines. And so the way that I try to solve these I think of it as a design problem, and really working at this on the front end. The more structure you have on the front will save you time later on. So really getting everyone, all the key members on board early from across disciplines at the start, not once the project has already been outlined. Establishing shared goals and wins. So this would be explicitly asking each partner, what does success look like in your world, and then writing those down, and the types of outputs, venues, timelines, and then from there designing the project so each discipline has their metrics, their outputs within it. Creating the shared language, so sometimes we'll do a project playbook with shared terms, or agreed on shared terms, thresholds, standpoints, those types of things, and then agree on decision rules. So we don't just agree on the plan, we'll agree how to make decisions when in events of disagreement. So that's really fast.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So as a computer scientist, many of my collaborators, for example, are NASA scientists. So at the very beginning, we found out that we have different definitions for the same English word. For example, when we say model, we make different things. As a computer scientist, when I say model, I mean, for example, machine learning model that can approximate input, the relationship between input and output. Many of the physics scientists working at NASA, they have a different definition of model. And also when we talk about validation, the purpose and the evaluation of validation are completely different from my discipline and my collaborators. So I feel like the most effective way to overcome those barriers is that we need to have in-depth conversation and discussions. So that helps us, basically us from both sides, to understand what are the challenges they are trying to solve, what problems do they value, and how do we, for example, find a common interest that can benefit from both fields. For example, one of the problems we encounter is that they think whatever machine learning model predicts may not be accurate, even though we use testing data set to verify that. Because the simple fact is that machine learning model predictions violate the physical conversation laws, right? So it's not a matter of the data set you are using to evaluate the models. It's about the existing physical laws that the model, basically the predictions violate. So that involves lots of in-depth conversation and discussion. So the bottom line is that more conversations and discussions are needed to overcome those barriers.
Yeah, so I think Julie covered broadly the important things that I would talk about. The main thing that came to mind for me was just that I find myself working with qualitative researchers somewhat frequently. And I am quantitative, and so when we work together, the main challenges I see are that I need to communicate my need for large sample sizes to do any kind of statistical analysis, and I need to communicate my need. I need to communicate my need for structured data That is, we need to figure out what data we're collecting in advance. So, God bless my collaborator, Scott Freeman, cultural anthropologist, but his way of operating is just go into Haiti and just like vibe, man, and just like collect stories. And that's gonna add a lot of depth to the project that we're doing together. But I needed to keep kind of hammering home. It's like, no, I can't just have 10 stories. I need 500 data points, and like we need to write that into the grant. So as far as overcoming, obviously it's just open communication, but I find, to use the anthropology term, I guess, boundary objects, something where you can come together and learn from each other. I'm a geographer by trade, and so that means maps. You just make maps that anyone hopefully can understand and can see the problem and lead to some kind of solution.
Thank you. That leads very well to the next question. Is a lot of, this is the research conference, we want to spark conversations, but a lot of interdisciplinary conversations stop at interesting exchanges in the coffee break. How do we bring it to another level for these research to be fundable and to be productive? So that's the next question. How do we form interdisciplinary research to be fundable and productive? Especially, how do we attract external grants for AI research? I can give you a couple of examples from NSF and NIH. For example, NSF has the Smart Health program. I think maybe there's a new name. Really deliberately combine AI and health. Just give you an idea. And I will pass this to the panelists. I think we have a few experts.
So, I think that there are really important connections between the prior question and this question.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, which is that we have our interdisciplinary debates, which are grounded in our epistemology and ontology, right? Like how we see the world and what data and kind of analytical approaches we think are valid in understanding that world. And I think there's a real risk with any interdisciplinary collaboration that those debates, which Julie laid out this wonderful framework for actually getting those out on the table and then putting them in some kind of appendix, that those debates will dominate the discussion around the proposal too much. And I think that as scholars, we develop our expertise in deep dives. We don't develop our expertise in big frames and big ideas. And I think at AU, we should be doing a lot more of this and thinking about ways we can come together and doing it. So any kind of successful interdisciplinary program or proposal is going to have a big frame and a big idea that is way too big or general for any individual within it, right? It's gonna be uncomfortable because you're like, I don't know if we can really answer that. And I don't actually understand half of what's going on. So the question is then what processes and supports are in place to help people to get to those big ideas, one, to help to find the potential funding proposals, two, and to help to figure out whether they want to work on it and then develop the proposal. And what's really important is I think that throwing a bunch of people who you think might work well together into a room and asking them to produce a proposal is a really bad idea because they may not work well together. Like so much of this is the question that I'm asking, and I want it to go into the kind of centers and labs discussion, is what processes can we put in place to help faculty get to know each other across disciplines and think about who they might want to work with. There has to be some opting in and there has to be some choice if you're actually going to invest in working with people, because sharing a grant with other people is a lot of work. And if those personalities don't work well together, it's not a lot of fun. So I really would love if the other panelists could kind of pick that up and flesh that out. A couple things with proposals: understand your audience. It's all about the audience, right? It's all about understanding what the funder wants and how to speak to them. Define all your terms. Write a proposal on 1/3 of what you've done, 1/3 of what you're doing, and 1/3 of what you want to do next. The idea that a proposal should be the entire thing should be your big new idea is a bad idea. You need to build it on what you've already done so that you can spell out a really nicely specified and articulated proposal, and that the funder will have confidence that you are the one to do it, which means you already have to have kind of done that type of work before.
Wow, that's an awesome answer. It's hard to follow because like I think that I loved it, and I'll focus on just a very specific subset of it, which is like collaboration. And I think that what I found is that you kind of need, like in my interdisciplinary teams, you kind of need like one crazy person, if for lack of a better term, like just someone who is, yeah, that's me. So like just somebody who really believes in the idea and that you really are going to benefit from that multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary work, and then you just won't let the idea die, right? So like for me, like I had this idea to do like that you could sort of see how people are talking about brands across time and apply large language models to understand that, right? And so, you know, I brought this up to a friend colleague, and you know, he said, yeah, I think this is possible. And so then I'm the crazy person here, and I'm just like saying, you know, just like bothering him like for months on end, right? And so we're having this back and forth where, you know, I'm saying like I'm pushing him, and he's sort of like saying, he's telling me what's feasible, but sort of that back and forth, you know, turns it like it's no longer just a hallway conversation. It becomes something that's more concrete. So I guess for me, like pragmatically, it's about, you know, just like moving beyond and actually having a crazy person push the idea forward, and then it becomes a publication potentially.
Okay. So, so I often take really interesting ideas and make them fundable. And so that's what I spent a large part of my career doing. And so some of the key areas are anchoring everything in a specific problem, especially when you're working across disciplines. And that will basically be the backbone of your narrative. Moving the ideas to a roadmap. So this really means translating the problem into clear aims, work packages, timelines, and roles. But one of the things here that's really key is making sure that there's explicit integration points across the disciplines and backgrounds, and not just parallel silo working individuals. And then showing, this goes off of what Susanna said, that whenever possible, really highlight, you know, if you have pilot data, if you have prior collaborations, if you have existing infrastructure to demonstrate that you can do this work, having that especially highlighted will give the funder confidence that you can actually complete what you're proposing to do. What I've seen across agencies and foundations in the last couple years, so they're really interested in a compelling case, use a compelling case and impact story. So they really want to see who benefits, what changes if you succeed. And then in the terms of AI, what I'm thinking is that how AI is the right tool rather than just a trend. So why that tool is specific to addressing X issue. Genuinely integrating your teams and methods, so they show how the disciplines are interdependent a lot in our proposals, so shared data sets, joint methods, co-designed evaluation, that's getting everybody together to do actually the methodology up front together and not just people throwing things together, bringing people in later. Serious attention to data ethics and governance, so this is with the data access, the privacy. You want to make sure you have a lot of that built in up front, because some proposals may actually get funded, but then not actually be able to complete the work because those agreements can't be executed. So if you already have like a template agreement or you're already working together, those are things you want to highlight in your proposal. And then realistic management and sustainability plan. I'm seeing a lot about sustainability, a lot in the last like 8 years. And so you want to make sure that you have that and show the infrastructure and the partnerships, how that's going to continue beyond the funded period.
That's a very excellent, comprehensive answer. I will just add some personal experience about getting projects funded, for example, from NASA and NSF. So I would say, as a computer scientist, if we are going to try to get funding from a National Science Foundation like 5 years ago, the major division of programs we are going after is the computer science division. But with the increased investment in AI, if you look at the solicitations today, actually starting from last year, published by National Science Foundation, many disciplines has the keyword AI in it. For example, the division for geoscience, the division for material science, they all encourage the research using AI or developing customized AI for those scientific problems. So I feel like the doors has been opened so that there are more funding opportunities to fund AI-related proposals. And also for National Science Foundation, they have, for example, one is more like basic research type of projects they would like to fund, and they have basically a big directory called the TIP, is the technology, innovation, and then partnership. So that particular directory is looking for proposals that basically translate existing funded project into practice, so that encourage professors to collaborate with industry to transition what has been developed to practice use. So they are looking for downstream users or application users to further basically to further materialize the research we have been doing. So that's another places that basically professors can look for funding opportunities. And also speaking about NASA is a little bit different from the NSF solicitation in the sense that they have a particular data product or problem in mind related to NASA missions. So in order to get proposal funded into those type of solicitations, you may want to build connections to understand what are the challenges, what are the data products they are working on, what are the mission priorities that are looking for technologies to help them be successful. So have a good understanding of that will basically give you a higher chance in getting your work funded by NASA.
Yeah, I'll just add one quick piece of just, it's pretty direct. It's like, how do you get from the crazy guy conversations in the hall to the externally funded project? Like there's the big gap there. And I mean, the answer that's helped us out a lot is just internal funding, right? Like being able to put together some kind of 1 or 2 page proposal where it's still a little bit of a moonshot. Either ours have come a couple times now from the Center for Environment, Community, and Equity. Then you're like, oh, we got that money. Now we actually need to figure out how to turn this into something. And we did it once, and we're hoping to do it again.
Yeah, we need to jump a little faster. So this is great for the next question. For example, I can start. So yesterday I went to a friend of mine cutting ribbon clinic for weight loss. You know, these are popular things. I met her husband, who's a surgeon in spinal cord surgery. And I had a great conversation with using my Gaussian splatting to reconstruct some of they're very, very needed in remote surgery. Okay, so now I have this idea. I really would like to explore it. How does the university centers and institutes help me so that I can be productive and have a collaboration with this doctor instead of rather adding more administrative complexity? So because of time, we probably invite the representative of centers and institutes, Susanna, Julie, and Leah to answer this. And the last question you can yeah, thank you.
Would you like to start, Julie? You want me to start? Okay. I'm not sure. I think centers. You
guys start and I'll finish.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's
Good.
how we're going to do this.
I think centers and institutes should do some things. I also think that deans should do other things, right? So the idea of who is actually providing the incentives to faculty to spend their time and take the risk. You're working on a proposal, you're not working on a publication, right? There needs to be some buy-in, both for these kind of collaborative proposals, but also for the incentive of even putting proposals out there. And so I think at first thinking about what faculty incentives are and how deans and centers might be able to shift those incentives is really important. I think too, providing kind of incubator or other types of workshops where faculty can come together, either present some kind of draft, and you can have critical feedback to help improve it. And I think that we can do that, centers and labs can do that, but also offices of research can do that. I think third, there's the idea that somehow that magical, if just somebody finds the right funding source, the right funder for me, I'll be able to do everything I want. And I don't think that I haven't actually benefited that much from these kind of broader funding searches. And so I think thinking about maybe a general kind of strategy that we can give faculty about if you want to engage with philanthropy, these are the kind of potential philanthropists, and here's how you can build those relationships. If you want to engage with NSF, NIH, this is how you do it. If you want to engage with State Department or state level funding, this is how you do it. Because each one of those requires a different relational path and they're each very different end users of your proposal. And so really understanding them and understanding that process is more important than, me having a list of kind of 10 potential places to submit my proposal, but me not understanding the game with any of them.
Yeah, so I'm not so experienced in answer that in the fact that CES just launched a new center called Center for AI Research in Sciences and Humanities. So the idea of creating this center is to get people across the college and also beyond the college. So people, for example, who is doing projects or research that is AI related. So we see that as a central place that can bring people together. For example, when I started working on analyzing NASA satellite imagery, so for example, the only way I can find out my collaborator is go to different, departmental website and click on the publications of each faculty. But the publication means this is a finished project, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I have no idea about what their current ongoing projects are so that we can find some common interest to do some interesting work. So I think the center provide a place to let people to talk to each other, to spark new interest, so that could help with the research. But the other thing is stress is that we need to fundraising for the centers, so that gives the faculty some incentive to come and talk, right? How can we get seed money to motivate faculties to spend their time to come to talk to each other, because it is possible, right? You spend hours talking to each other and end up with no paper and no proposal. So fundraising is another, I think, priority for the centers, and I'm still learning from other people's how do we do that to sponsor, to support faculty across different disciplines.
Okay, I'm going to talk from the Office of Research standpoint, since we have two centers here. I'm also a center director, but I'm going to focus on the Office of Research because, as Dean Marchek said this morning, I am really making a concerted effort to bring down the level of bureaucracy that we have seen in research administration and barriers to research across campus, so trying to deal with that at actually a systematic level. One of the big things is, so I've been meeting with if you're having an issue, like a system issue, please communicate with your associate dean of research. They will directly report that issue to me, and we can work to mitigate it as soon as possible. Notification bringing us in as soon as possible will get the resolve faster. We are working to really, I see our office as integral to reducing the bureaucracy and making things more efficient. So what we can also do is lower search and coordination costs. So we can help you find the right partners across campus. If you have a research topic that you're interested in and need a partner or want somebody from a different field, we can help you identify that person. We can work with the schools and the units to help make those connections. We can also provide shared tools and templates. So we're talking about data use agreements, IRB, tech transfer, all of those types of things we have within our office. So please reach out and also explore our website. The website's undergoing revision, so you can also just reach right out to us and we can point you to which of the 3 websites apparently we have where the information is. Working on that. Acting as navigators and translators. So since we work across the schools and departments, we can also help if it's 2 in-unit research teams that are pre-award trying to work on an award, we can help them translate or actually help with the coordination between them and our office. I talked about structural fixes, and so in addition to that, we can also, like, if you have a specific mechanism that you're applying for and you want to talk to a PI that has been successful in that mechanism or that with that funder before, you can reach out to us and we can make those connections. We're going to do that now. Eventually, we're going to have a mentoring program that focuses on that. So that will be coming up. And then we had an idea for seed funding is potentially doing something with like center mashups. So 2 centers really joining to tackle a problem, and us, providing seed fundings for that.
Thank you. We don't have time for more questions from me, so it's open to the floor. So we have 5 more minutes to have maybe 2 questions.
Hi, Julia.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It just captures it better on video. A lot. Thank you. Julia, you'd mentioned that you'd tried using AI, specifically ChatGPT, to write some proposals, and I was curious about, and you'd mentioned you had some challenges. I was just curious what those challenges were.
Yeah, it really comes to like the timeline. And so I think it's a great starting point, and then I can go in and like really fill it out. I have used it a little for, as Mike has, for, do you see any weaknesses in this area? So I think that part was really valuable. I just did that like 2 weeks ago. So I'm still learning and working. I should probably take a session from anybody here is better than I am. I just don't really know how to like use the tool yet. I think it's going to be a very valuable tool once I am able to hone my skills in it, just for proposal writing, because I do a lot of that already, and I think that it will be something very valuable once I figure out how to integrate it into my workflow.
Got it.
I
Thank
think you kind of need to figure out what the bite-sized pieces are. I think that you are not good at and it is good at. And so for me, it's like assembling. It's like, oh, I can't figure out how to make this transition from one concept to the other. Help me with these phrasings, or put these bullet points that I know are going to be in one paragraph, but I'm being too lazy to write it out right now. Just make that paragraph, and then I'll be the editor instead of the writer. That's how I've been using it.
Also, I want to warn you, NIH actually have a rule. You cannot use large language model in proposal writing. So you do have to pay attention to some of these rules, because that could hinge on some other issues.
Yeah.
There's an ethical concern there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'm wondering if any of us have qualms about the idea of using an AI for editing our work. I feel like I'm short-circuiting my craft function as a writer. And when I have students using Grammarly, it also stresses me as well. But the AIs that we have are always trying to entrap us in this project of using all of their services. They want us to submit a new article based upon their work. Have you thought about this? What is the appropriate boundary of the AI contribution in this context? Thank you.
I think it really depends on how you write. So I don't use AI in writing. I use it like as a research assistant for like a pre-lit review, or to kind of think about different models I might use for different designs. I think that there is a real risk that what AI is doing also via Grammarly is making our writing very bland and uniform, and in the end, less compelling. And so if the skills that we're training ourselves in is to kind of write this less compelling work, that work will be less compelling. And so I think it's probably about differentiating that which deserves your focused writing craft and that which may be okay for an AI draft. That's how I'm basically thinking about it. And I think in terms of thinking about how you give credit to it in a big research project, the basic principle of good social science, the way that I do it, is transparency and replicability, period. So if this is part of your process, then you need to be transparent so that somebody else could take it and possibly do it the same way if the LLM actually behaves in the same way. But I think we should take our core research principles and apply them to AI use as well.
Do we have time?
One more question. If nobody, I will ask the last question. So there is the situation when you collaborate, you write a proposal and it was rejected. And then what do you do? Do you write another proposal or you switch to write a paper?
You resubmit it.
I mean, we do, but after two, there was one experience that just never get anywhere because then the field is old. In my field, things get old. So I just want to probe your beautiful brain for this.
So in my experience, rejected proposals are the norm, actually, I would say. Many of the proposals got rejected. Some of them basically just throw them in the trash because the development in the AI field is really, really fast. So every other week, you see a new model making a new score on the benchmark test set. So some of the proposals after, normally NASA and NSF takes 6 months to review a proposal, to give you back the funding decision. And lots of times after 6 months of waiting, the idea is no longer that compelling anymore. So I think it's just the norm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but some of them can be recycled,
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for attending. I think that's the end of this panel. We can chat more offline. Thank you.